The move comes as the Trump administration builds up military forces in the region ahead of possible strikes on
Going to
Iran.
honor the deal? The issue isn't whether we negotiate. The question is why do we negotiate?
Thanks for tuning in. Sorry about the change of location. I'm at work, but I wanted to get a video out because it looks like the Iran thing is definitely ramping up. The U.S. is definitely preparing to make a strike, as we all knew, and as I talked about in the last video. But I just want to talk about where we're at, and what I want this video to basically cover is who will be to blame if I'm not saying they will, but if things do go south and if things go terribly for our American forces that are in the region. I want you guys to know who to exactly blame whenever this does go south. So whenever the Iraq War happened after 9/11, we were pushed into war and convinced to go to war by a lot of the talking heads in the media and in politics in our government. And as the years went on, we forgot who those names were that told us that it was a good idea to begin with. So that's what I want to focus on today. So we got Fox News warmongering and pushing war propaganda to scare American citizens into being okay with a military strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. Not much more to say about it than that, so let's just get into the video and we'll talk about it some more.
The move comes as the Trump administration builds up military forces in the region ahead of possible strikes on Iran.
And on building out a nuclear program. This is their prophecy that says, no, we're not going to capitulate to the infidels, to the big Satan, the United States of America. So
I want to take you back to the region, show you on the map here about the advanced U.S. military buildup. See these red dots here? These are bases that host U.S. aircraft, right? So it's Jordan, Saudi Arabia, it's Oman. Everything in yellow is where the U.S. Navy has established a presence there on the ocean, right? Eastern Mediterranean, Persian Gulf here, Red Sea, and also off the coast of Oman as well. And you got, well, the Lincoln and the 3 destroyers that accompany that. And you've got just massive amount of material that you have options for.
All right, so nobody is denying at this point what is going to happen. Everybody is expecting a military strike. There is an insane level of personnel and equipment in the Persian Gulf, and everybody is saying that it's most likely there for not only an initial strike on the Iranian regime, but a sustained operation. So these attacks are going to be carried out for a number of days or weeks or months, depending on what the retaliation is and what happens. And you have to also remember that once you start lobbing bombs at other countries and throwing missiles at other countries, you lose the ability to control that where that escalation goes, which is why it's dangerous to play around with this stuff in the first place.
Okay, my deal with Lara, and this is what he said about the nuclear capability. Watch the wording now. Within a week, he says, they could be. Watch.
They've been enriching well beyond the number that you need for civil nuclear. It's up to 60%. They're probably a week away from having industrial grade bomb making material, and that's really dangerous. This is something that they have to stick with until they prove to us that they can behave.
How many times are you guys going to let them scare you with the idea that Iran is a week away from having a nuke? At this point, if you're not tired of hearing this excuse to go to war, then you're completely blind or you're a boomer. Iran has been a week away from a nuke for 30 fucking years. But don't worry, we have General Jack Keane here to tell us the 100% truth. So thank God Fox News is caring about us hearing about the truth and not propaganda.
They are way beyond that, and they have sites buried underneath the ground. But yet, they lie and lie. So why would we ever agree to a deal with these people when we know they're lying to us right now? They've lied to us for the last 46 years, and they will continue to lie and cheat. In my judgment, we should do nothing to extend the life of this regime when we have an historic opportunity right now, given it's so weak and fragile, to finally set the conditions for a regime collapse. We have never set the conditions for a regime collapse. We have never been in this position in 46 years. And the only reason we're in this position because of Netanyahu and Trump, the 12-day war, and what they did to weaken Iran, not just militarily.
I'll play it back if I have to, but He just said that they, as in the Iranian regime, lie, and then he said, why should we even have a sit down and have any deals with these people? So that tells you right there that conservatives in the media, most likely the Trump administration, never intended to have honorable peace discussions with these people. They want military action. The last thing they want is for the Iranian regime to sit down and figure out a pathway for peace. So he's going to talk more about it in the next clip, but he's calling for regime change, just like everybody who is in the media on the Republican side. And if you've noticed, all the Republicans, everybody who's supporting Trump in this military operation is now openly okay with regime change operations in Iran. As if these people forgot about the last 20 years of our foreign policy. These are the people, if you go back to as recent as the last presidential election, these are the same people who were saying that they were tired of regime change wars. I mean, Donald Trump got elected in 2016 on the promise that these regime change wars would end. I mean, do you not remember him calling out Jeb Bush for his brother's idiot war in Iraq? And then I hear Republicans for the past 4 years talk about how tired they are of these wars, how tired they are of the Ukraine war, how tired they are of worrying about other countries overseas instead of Americans here at home. And now Trump gets into office and they want to go blow the Middle East up again. It's fucking crazy. I don't even have to insult your intelligence and explain to you how dangerous a regime change operation can be and how easily it can go off the rails. And once American soldiers start getting killed in this conflict, which they very well possibly could, we're going to be 3 sheets to the wind, peace 1,000 yards behind us, and we'll be running full charge into a full-scale war because at that point, we're going to demand blood. And don't forget, once we depose the Iranian regime, do you think that every single person in Iran is going to come out with open arms and thank us? When has that ever been a reality in any of these wars? The most likely reality will be we put somebody into power in Iran, and because they're pro-Western and pro-American, half their country is going to hate them, and then they're going to instantly be in a war. They'll be in a civil war against their own people. And rebel groups from all around the world are going to walk in there, and it's going to be Syria 2.0, and it'll be all our fault.
This is a fragile, vulnerable nation that does have some retaliation capability. I'm not dismissive of that. And that's why we're putting resources in the region to protect our bases and to protect Israel. But the historic opportunity is here. It is right in front of us, and that's why I think it's the preferred option. If we get this regime to collapse and we start working with another regime, like we're doing in Venezuela, people that we can bend to our will, we have the opportunity for peace and stability that could be enduring for decades to come.
So if he's not dismissive of their retaliation capability, then that's him literally saying that he's willing to sacrifice American lives, American soldiers that are in the region in order to see this done. Do you think this guy is going to go and fight the Iranian war with the soldiers that are over there? Of course not. Just like every Republican here in the States that's cheering it on. Every Republican on Fox News, your politicians cheering on a war that they will never take part in. So once again, openly calling for regime change in Iran, and then continuing on with the delusion that this idea of placing somebody in power is actually going to work with. And everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine and dandy. Jack Keane needs to be checked for fucking Alzheimer's or dementia or whatever the fuck he has. Because I don't know. He couldn't just accidentally forget about the last 20 years, could he? Because he's been here at Fox News commentating on the wars for the past 20 years. Do you think he learned anything from Iraq or Afghanistan? There at the very end, he said, somebody we can bend to our will. And you know, that just sums up American foreign policy in a nutshell. We think we can go around the world and bend these people to our will, create havoc, kill people, destroy their cities, destroy their families, and then expect people to turn around and say, thank you for liberating me. That's the problem with this entire thing. We're supposed to be done with this bullshit. And Republicans who might be watching right now, Republicans who might be supporting a war in Iran because of what these people are telling you, you should be ashamed of yourselves. I'm right here with you. I'm a conservative. I've always been, I'm a conservative. I thought the Trump administration would be better than Kamala Harris administration. Not saying I voted for either one of them, but deep down, I didn't think that Trump would be worse. I thought he would be better. So hear me out. If you support this and you're out there openly advocating for it, then the blood of the American soldiers that could die in this conflict are going to be on your hands. And then whenever it completely goes to shit and it turns into a fucking nightmare, you have no right to complain about wanting to leave the war once you've advocated for destroying this country. Because we all know when the going gets tough, we give up on our wars and we leave the countries to fend for themselves. And then they want to blame a Democrat for withdrawing from the war after 20 years.
Bend to our will. We have the opportunity for peace and stability that could be enduring for decades to come.
He really believes peace in the Middle East is going to come after this. What an idiotic thing to say. These people have been saying that for 30 years. They said if you remove Saddam from power, that there would be peace that would sweep across the Middle East. And how did that work out for us?
That ISIS has encircled Baghdad, and at a time when there is political chaos in...
That is what is in front of us.
Yeah, you're dealing with I'll try and squeeze one more in here. You're dealing with a leader who's be 87 years old in April, and he's driven by theology. That's a hard thing to uproot. In the meantime, the New...
Driven by theology. So you don't mean the same way Israel is driven by theology to conduct their war for greater Israel, or the way Christian Zionists in America support the destruction of Gaza and the expansion of Israel because they see Israel as their biblical ally, even though they murdered Jesus and they teach that Jesus is burning in human excrement. Theology is one of the reasons why this is happening in the first place. It's one of the reasons why Israel believes that it can get away with what it's doing right now. So Mark Levin is another one who's just pushing regime change because he's willing to sacrifice American lives for Israel. It's as plain as that.
Islamist Nazis have told us what they're going to do, and they believe this is directed by God. And they have slaughtered tens of thousands of their own people in the last few weeks over the...
So once again, they accuse the Islamist radicals of believing that they are ordained by God. And I can't help but to think, once again, that Israel is literally conducting their war on the Middle East because they believe God gave them the land. And they believe that they're entitled to use, I don't know, whatever force they deem necessary to maintain power and control over the entire region.
Do you think they're going to honor the deal? The issue isn't whether we negotiate. The question is, why do we negotiate? The question is, why do we think some deal is going to keep these people under control?
Mark Levin doesn't want a deal. Mark Levin never wanted a deal. Mark Levin wants the regime overthrown. Mark Levin supports Israel, even if that means the cost of American soldiers' lives. Mark Levin is a coward. Mark Levin isn't going to fight in Iran. He feels like he's done enough by sitting there in the Fox News studio for 20 years talking about it in his crazy, deranged weasel voice that he has.
We cannot, as our generation, leave it to the next generation, our children and grandchildren, to deal with this. We must deal with this. Or they'll have tens of thousands of ballistic missiles. They'll have scores of nuclear warheads, and they will be able to reach our country. And since they've been willing to slaughter their own people by the tens of thousands, you better believe that they will use those nuclear warheads against our children and grandchildren. They're weaker than ever before. They're not.
It's all fire and flames talk meant to scare your parents and your grandparents. Our generation and below me are a little harder to fool because we've seen this time and time again. The same reason over and over again. They're going to get nukes and they're going to blow up all of us. They're going to blow up your kids because they hate Christians and they hate you because you're free. I mean, this is the same Iraq war era propaganda, and it's completely lost on the younger generations. Nobody believes anymore except the boomers and their parents. That's it. The younger generation, the younger Republicans, for the most part, are tired of being lied to. That's why they're running from the Republican Party after they voted for Trump in the last election. So for these Republicans to say that you can't negotiate with them because they're too radical, it's the same thing as Bush saying that you're either with us or you're with a terrorist. You're either with us or you're with Iran. And if you oppose this regime change war, then you're a traitor and you support the Iranian regime. When in reality, I don't care about the regime. I'm not pro-Iran. I'm pro the lives of our soldiers and against foreign stupidity. You might be able to forget about 20 years of war after 5 years, but we didn't forget it because it was our generation that fought that war. So it's not just ingrained into our memory. It's in the scars of the men and women who actually faced the dumb decisions by these disgusting people like Mark Levin. What did Mark Levin do during that war besides sit on his fat ass and collect millions of dollars talking about a war that he advocated for while the children of his generation fought and died for those decisions? And when Netanyahu lays out his demands for the Iranian regime, you have to realize they keep moving the goalposts. First, it was that they didn't want them to obtain military levels of enrichment. Now they say they can't even have industrial levels or anything like that. They're not allowed to have ballistic missiles anymore because those could be a threat. And yet, well, no shit. Every country has them for that reason. It's a threat to stop other countries from fucking with you. So remember this. The Iran peace agreement was never meant to happen. It was never meant to be successful. This has CIA regime change operation written all over it. Guys, we were supposed to be done with this stuff. We were supposed to be against this stuff. How can you seriously connect the two dots in your head from Iraq and Afghanistan being a terrible situation to Iran being a good idea? Think about it. This is stupid. They're leading us right into another retarded war. And that's all I got. I just hope that American soldiers don't die in the process here. That's really all I'm really concerned about. So hopefully these decisions don't take us too far down the rabbit hole. And like I said, once you start a war and start throwing missiles at other militaries, you lose the ability to control the escalation ladder. And there's no saying what happens a month down the road. That's why this is so risky. I'm not saying all this is going to happen. I'm not going to say I'm not saying for sure we're going to be drawn into a long-form military conflict, another long war. I'm not saying that's 100% a possibility, but it is a possibility. You can't ignore the fact that it is possible that something detrimental happens, a carrier gets sunk, a base gets hit. It's already out of your control at that point. It's already out of our leaders' control at that point. We're going to go to war. The American people are going to want blood, and next thing we know, it's a long, drawn-out conflict. And I'm not saying for a fact that it is going to go terribly and it is going to be a long, drawn-out conflict. Donald Trump has been very impressive whenever it comes to military strikes, and he deserves credit for not getting us involved on the ground. I think he's against boots on the ground, but there is a situation here that could unfold where that decision is also out of his hands. So, like I said, I'm not saying it's going to turn really bad. I'm just laying out the possibilities. And then if it does go bad, we know who the people are who are to blame. Not only is the Donald Trump administration to blame, but it's the people on Fox News. It's the people on social media, the conservative social media platforms or channels that are advocating for a regime change in Iran. These people don't learn their lesson. Anyways, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, bye.